folk, wherever you are, from wherever you are tuning in. Welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. I am not John Rowe. So I will do a very poor stand-in for John Rowe to welcome Despina Ariou again to the World Storytelling Cafe, who is going to tell us some stories this evening, particularly suitable for young people. And Despina is going to tell us stories of smart and silly. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Despina Ariou.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alistair. Thank you, Simona. It's weird to be here without Louis. I wonder where he is tonight. Well, anyway, we'll have to make do without our favorite king tonight. So, I thought of a topic around which I should weave my tapestry tonight. So I think that smart and silly does it. It works for me because, in fairy tales, people are smart or they are silly, but in real life, we're all a bit of both on occasions. Smart people can be silly and silly people can be smart. Who's to say? So, silly or smart? Who's up to tell who's what? I would like to start our evening today with a story about a very, very particularly smart person. But the story does not start with her. The story starts with her father. Her father was a farmer, and the two of them, father and daughter, they lived together and they were poor. They were so poor, they only had this one horse, their beloved mare, but they had no stable to put the mare to spend the night, so they had asked, as a favor from a rich neighbor, a widow, if they would be allowed to use her stable for their horse. And she had a huge stable full of horses, so rich was she. She had allowed them to put the horse there, and then one morning, when the farmer went to check on his mare, he saw that next to her, at the side, underneath the cabbage, there was a foal. Now, he was overcome with joy. He called his daughter and he said, "Look, our mare has had a foal. We are having a second horse. Isn't that wonderful?" But the rich widow, she was there that morning and she heard and she went and she looked and she saw that the foal was actually underneath the carriage, and she said, "Well, it's obvious. This is not your horse. Had it been your mare's foal, it would be there with his mother right now. But the foal is under the carriage, which means that it is mine. It belongs to me." They had this argument and nobody would give way, of course. Well, this is what rich people do. This is how rich people get richer. They take what is not theirs. But this time, the farmer was not willing to give up on his foal. So they decided that they would take the matter to the great Sultan, their king. The Sultan had a reputation of being wise, and the farmer had good hopes that he would be handed justice. On that day, when they presented themselves in front of the Sultan and told him and his court what had transpired, well, the Sultan was in a weird mood. He did not make up his mind directly. He said, "You know what? I will give you 3 questions, and whoever comes up with the best answers, he will have the foal." And so it was that the Sultan asked, "What is the fastest thing in the world? What is the softest thing in the world? And what is the dearest thing in the world? Now, the rich widow, she was quick to answer the king. She said, well, of course, my lord, the fastest thing in the world will be the Sultan's horse, your great steed, my lord. I am sure that no other horse could ever compete it. And as for the softest thing in the world, I am quite certain that that will be the Sultan's bed, as it is full of geese feathers. And as for the dearest thing in the world, well, my Sultan, I have heard you're very proud of it, so this must be the dearest thing in the world. It is the Sultan's beard. Now, the Sultan was pretty satisfied with his answers. However, he did turn to the poor farmer and asked, what about you, old man? Are you giving me my answers? And the farmer, he looked down, unable to look at the Sultan. And I have no answers to give you. But the Sultan said, it is okay. Worry not. I tell you what, you go to your house, sleep on it, and come back tomorrow with your answers. I will be waiting. Well, the next day. No, we're not in the next day yet, are we? Of course, it is the same day when the poor farmer returns to his house, looking all sorry and worried, and his daughter asks what the matter is, and of course he tells her everything. And she, who not only was a good daughter, but she was also a very wise person, she said, Father, let us sleep on it. Let's sleep on it, and in the morning, with our heads clear, we may come up with good answers for the Sultan. So, he might have been an illiterate man, but he was wise enough to listen to his daughter. He recognized her wisdom. And so it was that both of them went to bed, and in the morning when they woke up, his daughter went to her father and she said, this is exactly what I want you to tell the Sultan. So he took the path that led to the palace, presented himself in front of the great king, the ruler, and the rich widow was there waiting for her kind of justice to be done. And the Sultan welcomed him and said, have you come up with answers to my questions? I have, my lord. Let us have them. The fastest thing in the world must be the wind. Nothing is faster than the wind. No man or animal or human being or feline, not even the fastest creatures in our world could outrun the wind. And the softest thing in the world, that could be a kiss or a caress from a beloved person. And the dearest thing in the world, my Sultan, even though flattery does come pleasant to the ear, I am quite sure that honesty would be much more useful to a Sultan. So honesty is the dearest thing in the world. Well, the Sultan, he was not expecting this. Did you come up with those questions? No, sire, it was my daughter. Your daughter? She must be smart. Oh yes, sire, she's the wisest person in the world. Is she now? I tell you what, you get the fowl. The fowl is yours, obviously. It's okay, you can have it. But, cook, fetch me that basket of eggs from the kitchen table. And the cook was quick to get the basket and come back to the Sultan with it. Take this and give it to your daughter and tell her that she must hatch those eggs by morning. And when the chicks are ready, she must bring them to me. Well, the man took the boop of the fowl in one hand and the basket of eggs in the other and made his way home. And there he retold everything that had happened to his daughter. And the daughter, she said, "Father, let me have a look at those eggs." And she took one, she smelled it, and she put it right next to her ear, and she shook it, and she said, "But father, these eggs are boiled." "Oh no," he said. "Oh no, what can we do now?" "Well, you know that the Sultan is waiting for some chicks to be handed to him." "I tell you what, father, why don't we sleep on it? When we wake up in the morning with a clearer head, we may come up with a solution." So they did. They went back to bed. And in the morning, the girl woke up early at dawn. She left her house, went outside, exactly to the part where the great wood started. And there, it was full of pines. And she started picking up little twigs from underneath. And when she had a handful, she returned. And she said, "Father, take this to the Sultan and deliver this message for me." So the poor farmer took the handful of twigs, made his way to the palace where the Sultan was waiting for the chicks to be delivered. And he saw the farmer and wanted to know what this was all about. And the farmer said, "Here, sire, my daughter sends this to you. And she says that with this, you must make her a loom so that she can weave and make new places for our chicks, because there are so many of them, and she has to make them some dowry." Well, that seemed pretty cute to the Sultan, and he said, this one I must meet." So he said, "Your daughter is invited to the palace." "Oh, sire, what an honor." Yes. She must come, dressed and undressed. And she must bring me a gift and not bring me a gift. So, with this conundrum puzzling in his mind, the poor farmer took his way that led to his home, where he told his daughter everything. And she said, "Father, do not worry. Let us sleep on it. I am sure that tomorrow, with a clear head, we will find an answer." So, the next day, she went to her neighbor. She knocked on the door. She asked if she could borrow their fishing net. And they were nice people. Their neighbors loved them. She took the fishing net and went home. And there, when it was evening, she presented herself to the palace with a fishing net wound around her slender body. And like this, the door was open to the Sultan, and the Sultan could see with his own eyes that she was as beautiful as she was smart. Come in, I've been waiting for you," he said. And she went close to the Sultan, and her palms were closed, and when she approached, she said, "Sire, this is for you." And she opened up her hands, and out flew a bird. Now the Sultan stroked his beard. That girl, she had gone to him, dressed, but not dressed, and she had brought him a gift, but had not brought him a gift. He admired her. And after they dined together, and the conversation went on smoothly, he decided that she should make a nice queen for him. And he suggested that they should marry. He proposed. Now, any other young lady would have jumped at the opportunity of marrying the Sultan. What honor, what great joy. But this girl, she was thoughtful, and she said, "Sire, I am most honored by your proposal, but I have a term. A term? Yes, indeed. Listen, sire. If ever you should fall out, you must allow me, before leaving the palace's premises, to take with me the one thing I hold most precious in the world. If you accept this term, I will gladly be your wife with all my heart. And so it was arranged. There was a huge celebration, the part where most stories end because they live happily ever after. But, well, real life, real couples are not like that. Very often people fall out. It is only normal that we argue sometimes, but there are times when things get rather nasty. So it was that at one point the Sultan grew very angry of his wife, and he said, "Enough is enough, off with you. I want you to leave the palace for good. Go back to your father. I never want to see you again." And the queen, she said, "Yes, my lord, if that is your wish is my command. However, don't you think that after all the years that we spent together and we lived happily, we should have one last meal together? Will you do me this favor? And after that, I will be off. You will never see me again. What do you say?" Well, it was not much to ask, really, so the Sultan conceded. During the meal, she found an opportunity when he was looking the other way, and she slipped something in his drink. And once the Sultan had drunk his cup, his head fell fast on the table in front of him, right in the plate of luckily eaten soup, out of which she retreated him, and she had her servants carry him to her carriage, and off they went into the night, all the way back to her father's hut. She had the servants lay him on the floor, and she laid by his side and slept there. Now, in the morning, when the Sultan woke up, he looked around him and he said, "What is this place? Where am I? Where have you brought me? This is treason. You kidnapping the Sultan? You could pay with your life." "Yes, sire, but just to be fair, to be just, I would like to remind you of the one term I had asked you before you got married to me. Do you remember, sire?" Yes, I remember. It was something about taking something with you from the palace. Yes, Your Highness. It was taking with me the thing I will hold most dear in the world. And that, dear husband, is you. Well, after that, it's easy to understand that there was no grudge between those two. And of course, they returned to the palace. And they never fell out seriously again. They could manage the little arguments. So now they did live happily ever after. Thank you. I love the story. Parts of it in the motifs I have found in other stories, many different little ones all around, but all together, packed in one. This is one of my favorites.
Despina, I'm so sorry about all this coming and going.
That's perfectly all right. I'm glad you're here.
I made it at last.
Yeah, thank you for being here, my lovely Rona.
So,
I don't know, you probably missed the beginning. We said that our stories today would be smart and silly. Because sometimes the line between the two is too hard to tell. And smart people like us can become silly sometimes, and vice versa, of course. So since we have talked about smart people, it would only be fair that we should talk about silly people now. Once in a village, there was a man betrothed to become husband of a girl, and that afternoon he was paying a visit to his future wife's and mother-in-law's house. He was very warmly welcomed. He was shown to the table. He was sat there and waited for food and wine. So the mother-in-law, who really wanted this wedding, she said to her daughter, "Go, my girl, go down to the basement and bring our best wine for our esteemed guest." And the girl was off. Down she went, down the stairs to the basement, and there she took a jar and she started filling it with wine from the barrel. But as she was doing so, she looked upwards, and there she saw that huge wooden beam across the ceiling, and she thought, well, what if I do get married to this guy and we become a married couple and we have a kid and, well, if it were an English story, the kid would be named Jack. But it is a Greek story, so now the king, pardon, not the king, the kid is named Yanis. And we become a married couple and we have a son and I call him Yanis. And he grows up. And one day we have guests, and I tell him, Yanis, go down to the basement. We're going to be living in exactly the same house, mother's house. And tell him, Yanis, go down to the basement and fetch wine for our guests. And Yanis goes down to the basement, and as he's pouring wine in the jar, this huge wooden beam falls on Yanis's head and kills him in an instant. Oh no! There goes my boy! And she forgets about the barrel and the jar and the wine, and she just sits on the floor and starts crying and wailing. Now, upstairs, they cannot hear her cries, but it has been some time since she went to fetch the wine, and she hasn't come back yet. So there's this awkward silence between the mother-in-law and the future groom. So the mother-in-law says, "Where has that girl gone? I'd better go and check on her." So down the basement goes the mother-in-law, and she sees her daughter crying on the floor, and she says, "Darling, dear, what happened? Are you hurt?" No, mother, that's not it. I'm not hurt, but what if I get married to this man and we become a married couple and we have a son and I call him Yanis and we live here in your house, and Yanis grows up and we have guests, and I sent Yanis to the basement to fetch wine for the guests. And look, mother, did you see that huge wooden beam on the ceiling? What if that beam falls on his head and kills him in an instant, mother? Oh no, the mother-in-law. Oh no, not my grandkid, not Yanis. And they both sit on the floor and start crying. Now, upstairs, the groom-to-be is sitting at the table all alone. No mother-in-law, no future wife. So he decides that it would be a good idea to go down to the basement and check on them. So he does, and he finds the two women wailing, pulling their hair and wiping tears off their faces, and he wants to know what's happening, of course, and they tell him both together, "What if you get married and we become a married couple, we have a son, and you name the son Yanis, and we live in exactly this same house, my mother's house, and Yanis grows up and you have guests, and you send the boy down to fetch wine for the guests, and look at the ceiling. What if that wooden beam falls on his head and kills him in an instant?" And they both start crying their eyes out and wailing, and, well, the future groom, face palming, says, I'm not entirely sure I can proceed with this wedding." What? You promised! You have given us your word. Look, okay, I am a man of my word. Let's be fair. I will make a short trip out to the wall on my mule. And if I encounter people sillier than you two, I will come back and we will get married. So it was arranged. The man on his mule left the village and took the path that led to other villages and towns and cities. He was not sure where he was going, but it was long distances, and mules are not very fast animals, so it took him some time until he got to this remote property where he saw the weirdest thing he had ever seen. There was this cow next to a house, quietly grazing at the grass, but there was a rope tied around the cow's waist going all the way up the house, up the roof, into the chimney. And from that house, from within, loud cries were heard, "Help! Help! Somebody help me!" So, well, he thought he should go and help whoever it was that was asking for help. So he was in the house. There was nobody there. There was just the chimney. And out of the chimney, the only thing he could see were two flopping feet. So he said, "Are you right there?" "Yes, yes, please take me out." So he did the only thing anyone of us would do. He took hold of those legs and pulled with all his might, and there was a crack heard as if rope was breaking. And soon a man was sitting in the ashes, covered in soot from the chimney, on the floor. "Thank you, thank you, my good man. I don't know what I would have done without your help." Yes, okay, but can I inquire, what were you doing inside the chimney?" "Oh, I should tell you. I had an argument with my wife this morning, and I told her that I was very tired of going to the field to work all day. And all she had to do was the chores, just the housework. And I was way much more tired than she was, upon which she started chasing me around with a pan in her hand and said that if her life was so easy, I should have a taste. Well, she went to the field and she left me here alone, and we have this cow, you see. And I thought, what if the cow wants to graze further and further away and I lose it? Perhaps, just to be safe, I should tie a rope around it. But then I thought that still, you can never be too sure. There was lovely hay up on our roof, so I took the ladder and I put it at the side of the house, and I took our cow and pushed it up the ladder. Good girl, until she was up there, and there, up on the roof, she started grazing on the hay, and I threw the ladder, the rope I had tied her with through the chimney, and then I went inside the house and tied myself around it so I wouldn't lose the cow. Smart, eh? Yes, very, said the man. I particularly liked the part where you told your wife that she was useless. Yes, that was very smart of you, I can see now. But I don't know, didn't you think that if the cow jumped off the roof, she would carry you with it up the chimney? Well, my good man, the thought simply didn't cross my mind, but you helped me, you saved me. So let me buy you dinner, please. Stay here and dine with me. This is the only thing I can do to repay you the favor. So it was that the man sat on that table. I will try not to recount the conversation that followed, because really a man can be only so smart. But let us say that they did eat food and he did spend the night there. And then on the next day, he thought that, well, that man certainly would outdo his future wife, and perhaps he should go back to the village and go on with the wedding. But what if it was an isolated incident and people were not as silly after all? He should carry on his journey and find out. So upon his mule he was, taking the path that led to the next property. And there he held fast his mule, because from inside that house he could hear desperate cries that went like, 1, 2, 3, ho! Oh no! Oh no, not again! 1, 2, 3, ho! No, I will never do it. Oh, if only someone would help me. Well, it was a cry for help, and he was curious. So he opened the door, went inside, and was astounded to see this man having 2 boots set straight, jumping on a chair, and from the chair leaping, trying to put his 2 feet inside those boots. My good man, what are you doing? Well, I don't know, to be honest. I'm trying to wear these boots. I've been at it for hours. This morning, this peddler passed from here and he sold me those boots and he said they were good leather boots and I paid handsomely for them, but he didn't give me any instructions. Instructions? Yes, instructions as to how to put on the boots. And I have been trying all morning, jumping and leaping and hopping. Oh, once I got one foot, but the other not, so I had to start all over. Once I had the other foot, but not the right one, so I had to start from the beginning. And once I managed to put both feet inside, but they were at the wrong shoe. And now I don't know what to do. Face palming himself, this future groom, he said, my dear man, this is not the way to put on boots. It's not? Well, what is it then? Look here, I'll show you. You sit on a chair, and you take the boot in your hand, and you put your toes in it, and then you pull with your hands, and at the same time, push with your foot. Well, I would never. Well, I'll be. Look at that. Thank you, you're my savior. Please, let me buy you dinner. And so it was that he had another dinner, and then he decided that, well, it was about time for him to go back to his village and go on with the wedding, hoping against all odds that maybe some of his genes would be more prominent in Yanis's construction. Thank you. Such joy. Awesome. Well, yeah, that leaves me just about time to tell you my third story for today, which I had from the brilliant Jean Brulé yesterday. The story was presented to me as a Jewish tale, so from that tradition, but I'm sure, like many of our tales, there have been several different versions of it from around the globe. However, I did hear it from Jim, so I'll try to deliver it as such, as a Jewish tale. There was a sultan, and the sultan was fair. He was a nice man. He cared about his subjects' well-being, and many a time he would disguise himself, sometimes on his own, sometimes with his great vizier, and he would go around the city to check if justice was served and if people were happy. And if they weren't, he would try, he would do his best to mend any situation he encountered. And this particular event, disguised, unrecognizable, he had entered the poorer part of the city, the slums. The houses there, that you could barely call them houses. They were just little huts, one next to the other, supporting each other. In one of those huts, there was a light on, and he could see a man sitting on a stool. And the man was singing. So the Sultan stopped outside that house. And he heard the man's song, and the song would be about how beautiful life was, and how everything was nice, and how God was great. Puzzled, the Sultan entered that man's house. And he said, "My good man, I can hear you singing. What are you doing here?" "Oh, well, I'm a cobbler. I mend shoes. Here, I have this piece of leather, and with this candle I try to sew it. And you were singing about life being beautiful and God being great." "Indeed, indeed. What is there not to like about life? Life is great. God is great," said the man. Now, we said that Sultan was a nice fellow, right? Well, this wouldn't do. Something was off. This was upturning the natural cause of things, cause and effect, the natural order. He decided that he would do something about it. So he went back to the palace after being served a very poor dinner from the poor cobbler, who was a very hospitable, nice man, and his wife. Dinner had been some colored water they called soup, and very hard crusts of bread. He went back to the palace, unable to believe how these people would be able to find life beautiful. And he said, they must be taught a lesson. So the next day, the city criers were out. "Hear ye, by royal decree, there will be no peddlers working in the kingdom." No cobblers, pardon. The profession of cobbling is from now on being outlawed. It will be illegal to mend shoes for anyone. So, Sultan was content, disguised at night. Went back to that man's house. He knew exactly the way that led there. The light was on. And in that light, he could see the man sitting on his stool, singing. The Sultan could not believe it. He went inside the house and he said, hello again. I was passing through the neighborhood and I could hear you singing." "Oh, yes, said the ex-cobbler. "Life is beautiful. God is great. Everything is so nice. I heard that the Sultan made a decree that no cobblers could work in his city." "Oh, yes, our great Sultan, that good man, God bless him, he did. And then I found out I no longer had to bend my back and try to see in this dim light. I could now go down to the river, fill my buckets and come back and sell the water. Now I'm a water carrier." "Are you? And you think life is beautiful?" "Oh, yes, it couldn't be more beautiful. Life is beautiful, God is great." "I see," said the Sultan. After being fed what they had to offer, he returned to the palace. And the next day the criers were out. Hear ye, by royal decree, no man should be allowed to go to the river, fetch water and sell it. Water carriers are outlawed from this moment on." "That will fix it," thought the Sultan. So at night, in disguise. Out he was, roaming the streets towards the ex-cobbler's, ex-water carrier's house. And there, in the dim light, he could see that the walls of the hut had been freshly painted. There was a new door hanging from the hinges. He went inside and he said, "My good man, are you all right?" "Oh, yes, I have come up with some money," he said. "Have you? How so?" "Well, you see, our good Sultan outlawed my previous profession, so I was there sitting at the market when an army officer passed by and he said they were recruiting men and they took me, they drafted me to the Sultan's guard." "Oh, did they now?" Yes, and I couldn't be happier. Life is beautiful, God is great." Next morning, the city criers went straight to the king's guard, to the Sultan's guard, and let everybody know that from then on, all new recruiters were not to be paid until a month had passed. Well, they would have to make do. So that would fix it now, surely, thought the Sultan. Soon he was there, and the man, he was happier than before. And the Sultan could not believe it. He said, "What is it now?" And the man said, yes, you know, I have entered the Sultan's guard." "Yes, I know," said the Sultan, not being himself. "But I've heard that you're not going to be paid. Has somebody paid you?" No, I have not been paid. I have not been paid. It's just that they give me this sword, you see. This sword, which I wouldn't like to use. So I just scraped off the metal and took the metal parts to the market and I sold them and they gave me good money. Now I have money enough with my wife to have a proper meal. Please dine with us tonight. We will give you proper food this time. And surely before long, a month will have passed and then I will start getting paid. So life couldn't be more beautiful. God is great. The Sultan sat and dined with them that night and returned to the palace thinking, "Got you now." So the next morning, all the guard was called before the Sultan, and the Sultan had some of his private guards carry a criminal behind him. They dragged him in front of the royal guard, and the Sultan addressed the men. He said, "One of you is going to have the honor of executing this despicable criminal. One of you is going to be handed the honor of cutting his head off, and that will be you." Well, the ex-cobbler, ex-water carrier, now guard, said, "No, sire, I wouldn't like to end man's life. My religion does not permit it." Well, it is the Sultan's order that a head will roll today. It can be the criminal's if you're willing to cut off his head, or it can be yours if you don't. Well, the ex-cobbler, the ex-water carrier, the now royal guard had to think really quickly. Yes, sire, yes, okay, I will do it if you order me to, but first you must allow me to pray to my God for forgiveness, because it goes against my religion. "Go ahead, man, make it swift." "Dear God, I pray, if this man deserves death, may you spare his soul and mine, because I am to cut off his head. But if that man is to be pardoned, now, this instant, turn my sword to wood. And with that, out came the sword for everyone to see that a miracle had taken place. The criminal was spared to life imprisonment. The Sultan said, "You are to be guard no longer. I could use an advisor like you." Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Despina.
With Jim's kind permission, I shared this story with you today.
Thank you. Blending some stories there which were familiar and some I didn't know as well, which was lovely. One of those stories I know as a Welsh story, but I also know it as a song from Kent, which is the other side of the country from Wales, and so it's lovely to hear the way that you've blended those. Fantastic, thank you. At this point, John Rowe says next time, and he flicks through his diary. This is happening. As I am only a poor imitation of John, I have a mime diary, and unfortunately I can't see anything on the pages. Has Waleed got any idea of what's coming up, or anybody got any idea of what's coming up, or do we just go? Oh, Simona's about to speak, I think.
I think there's the World Storytelling round on Sunday. I saw it as the next event.
Thank you. World Storytelling round on Sunday. Thank you very much.
2 days from now at 6 p.m. UK time, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
be in Scotland then. I might still be able to join up. I'll be at my sister's. Despina, I tell that story about the wooden sword as well, but I have heard other versions of it. I love that version of yours. It was really cool. But yeah, it's a great story. But as Alistair says, the stories travel all over the place. You know, it's just like you go somewhere obscure to some little storytelling club way up in the corner of Scotland or something, and somebody tells a story that you thought you were the only one that knew.
Indeed, I think it's the magic of stories, right? This is what weaves us together as a human tapestry across the globe. I mean, I remember when we met in Marrakesh, Rana, I was at the school trying to give the kids a medieval story, as I had heard here from Europe. And then the Quran teacher interrupts me and he says, "Can I please finish this? This is an Arab story." It's incredible. It's magical.
Crazy. It is. It is. Yes. Alistair, I've got a wee question for you. I think I might have asked you this before. Despina could tell you. I don't know, Simone, if you even know about this. But I do something called headliners. And I wondered if you might want to be a headliner sometime. Despina has been twice.
Oh, would love to. Would love to. Yeah. Do yes, please. Please.
It hacks me off that Wednesday afternoon, that's the day that I spend with my son. I've got an adult son with learning difficulties, and that's the one day that we have that we go and do shopping and stuff. But I'm trying to get that changed so I can come along to your school's thing, because I would love to, because apart from anything else, I've got a lot of experience to share for the guys. You know, it's 30 years.
And the storytellers and schools thing is just totally dependent on the generosity of storytellers in supporting their peers. Yeah. And it's lovely, really lovely.
It's a wonderful thing as well. Oops. Yeah. So I'll get Stephen, one of these days I'll get him to agree to changing the day, but he's like, you know, he's also autistic, so everything's got to be just as it should.
Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, no, I understand that one. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So, everyone who is watching either through Facebook or YouTube or Zoom Live, thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us live or joining us in the future. It's lovely that you've come along to the World Storytelling Cafe to enjoy Despina's stories. And thank you, Waleed, and I will steal John Rowe's phrase, for flying the magic carpet. I'm assuming he's there somewhere. Yes, do we have to do that? Is that an action we have to do? I don't know. Is that what we do? Okay, so there we are for the magic carpet. Thank you very much, everybody, and good night, and see you next time at the World Storytelling Cafe. Good night. Thank you, Despina.
Thank you for hosting. Love and light.
I'll see you soon, Despina, no doubt. And I'll send you a message as well, Simone, and get you on my list.